something might very well be able to assess an impact. However, they have little to do with what taxes are collected, paid, assessed, and the like. So, to make it very simple, I would prefer that fees were taken up front. If you want to incentivize development in certain areas, that's perfectly acceptable. You have lower fees. If
That's
you want to disincentivize, you have higher fees. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing.
Very good. That was concise. That was pretty well done for, again, such a complex issue. And again, any one of you folks up here can if that's kind of the third rail and the three leg stool that we have going on this Sarasota 2050: fiscal neutrality, new urbanism, and somebody help me. What's the third leg? Anyway,
Concurrence.
yeah, I don't think that's it.
Fiscal concurrency.
Is that what it
We
is?
can make up a brand new thing tonight.
All right, and Paul, you're not on the clock, but just give the folks here a little definition of District 2, where that spreads.
District 2 starts out at the Barrier Islands, Longboat Key, the opposite portion, it's in Sarasota County, down into Lido, St. Armands, across into downtown, extends out, basically out Bee Ridge Road to a little further to the south. It's a very narrow strip, but then gets to I-75, breaks out down into Proctor, where I think the line is Bee Ridge Extension as it swings down. It's the most concise, I believe, of for area-wise, because it has higher density areas. So it's like very many districts, someone decided to gerrymander it at some point. I think it's changed it hasn't changed very much. It hasn't changed very much in the time that I've been around. So.
Small but dense.
Small but dense, about 83 or 84,000 people.
Well, thanks, Paul. Okay, well, let's travel back up the road to District 4, and Mr. Ray. And we have one more Sarasota 2050 question. So, reporter, regarding new urbanism, much has been said about open space and the configuration of housing. New urbanism, defined by the academic community, states, quote, an urban design movement which promotes walkable neighborhoods containing a range of housing and, here's the key issue, job types. Little has been said about the creation and interface of major employment centers in the 2050 plan. What's your approach towards the creation of a range of job types in future East County development? And just to let you know before we click it, we're not, in our discussions as a board, when we talk about jobs, we're not talking about making change at the 7-Eleven. We're talking about a local hero like PGT. Jobs that a family can actually build a home income off of and have some real stability there. So take it away.
Well, new urbanism. Back, I guess, in the late 90s, that was the catchphrase that everyone was using, that it was around the country, it was starting to become in vogue. So obviously Sarasota County latched onto that as well, and not just the county, but the residents, the people out east who were brought into this discussion, the community in general seemed to like the idea that we have this eastern quadrant that essentially is one house for every 5 acres. That's it. That's all you can do out there. The development community, I think, was right in saying that shouldn't be all we can do out there. Otherwise, what's going to happen 50, 70 years down the road? We're going to have a bunch of homes, each on 5 acres, with septic tanks, wells. It's just going to be an unviable situation. So they allow new urbanism because it seems to be the right thing to do. But it never really took hold. Now the development community paints a picture that they couldn't do what they wanted to do because 2050 was blocking what they wanted to do. The problem was with getting loans to do these long-term projects. They couldn't make it work. It wasn't viable. During the time period they were talking about, when these developments were not being proposed, when villages and hamlets were not coming to the forefront, we were right in the middle of the Great Recession. This was a an enormous problem nationwide. Great Recession was the biggest economic downturn of our lifetimes, second only to the Great Depression. So to point to 2050 and say, we couldn't make new urbanism work, I think they didn't give it a chance to work. Someone said, new urbanism is Mayberry, and Mayberry's dead. Maybe Mayberry was murdered. Maybe it wasn't allowed to grow up and to happen. So I think there's a workable plan out there. We just have never given it a chance. And right now we're on the verge of basically, through some changes in 2050, through some things that seem to be just, language here and there, eliminate the 15-year gap between villages, take it to 0, no time in between village applications. So now we could have 6, 10, who knows how many village applications coming all at once, and hamlets and so on. So in my mind, there is something that we can work with there. We can bring in, I know the question was about employment. Employment centers, the changes in 2050 are going to change all that entirely. They're not going to be centered in a walkable village. They're going to be along major corridors. So I think, we rushed into this. We didn't allow it to really come to fruition.
Thank you. John Mender, we're going to switch gears here a little bit, and we realize that Fruitville actually does reside in Sarasota County, so we're going to pull the camera back a little bit and do a little bit more county at large or personal questions. So, to you, priorities. What do you see as the top priority of the county commission, and what changes will that create? And then secondly, what do you foresee as being the most difficult part of the county commissioner's job? So, twofold question there. What do you see as the top priority of the county commission? Going into, that'll be 2015, obviously. And then what do you see as the most difficult aspect?
Well, I'm going to go back to the 2050 plan.
That's
I
fine.
decided to run for the Sarasota County Board of County Commissioners for District 4 because I had told the Sarasota County Commission 2 years ago that they needed to scrap the 2050 plan with its fiscal neutrality and go to a total plan community for the area east of I-75 and prepare a master plan for utilities and prepare a master plan for roads and prepare and to adjust the impact fees accordingly. Sarasota County is broke. The reason that Sarasota County is broke is because the 2050 plan for the last 8 years has been a total economic disaster for Sarasota County. Sarasota County has had one development in the last 8 years. It took it 7 years to have a development to be approved. And it took, and the only reason it was approved is because the developer had deep pockets and could finance the entire project himself. So if you get, 2050 plan has 3 village concepts, or 3 areas where village concept can be built. The rest of the zoning is 5-acre lots. 5-acre lots are selling for $500,000 and up in Sarasota County. That is not affordable housing, probably for not anyone in this room. If you go to the total plain community plan, you'll have proper zoning for the jobs and the range of housing. And I compare what I'm proposing to the Palmer Ranch where I live, it's a total plain community, and to Lakewood. And the Palmer Ranch was the total plain community model for Lakewood. And Lakewood has been very successful, and the reason they've been very successful is they have a small lot which faces on the street, and on the back of the lot it faces on a wetland, or a golf course, or a large body of water.
30 seconds.
If I just need to make one more comment.
Yeah, you got 30
And one
seconds.
more comment is that is how you get affordable housing And that is also how you get an economic mix in housing, because the setbacks are there. You can build either a large house or a smaller house on that lot. And that's the reason Sarasota County needs to be looking at the total planned community plan for the area east of the interstate, and the 2050 plan, because of its economic disaster, needs to be scrapped.
Thank you, John. Alan, so we got two open. You can fall back on any of the third rails of the 2050 and see if you want to get a shot. Or you can go to the question that still is open, unaddressed, priorities. What do you see as the top priority for county commissioners facing 2015 and beyond? And what changes will those priorities create? And then what do you think is the most difficult part of the job? You're free to grab either one of those.
Okay. Well, to start with, the difficult part of the job is that there are 400,000 people almost in Sarasota County and 285,000 registered voters. And based on my travels for the last 2 years in this campaign that we started November of 2012, every one of those folks has about 30 opinions. So you're never going to keep everyone happy. Everybody's got a different opinion. Everybody's got a different emphasis. Everybody's got a different background. I live on 4 acres. I think we like that. Is it right to dice up the eastern part of the county at 5-acre lots? Absolutely not. We'd never be able to afford to deliver the services. I think that keeping the taxes flat, keeping the services where they are or better, is what I would strive to do. And that's the most difficult part of the job. Sarasota County has done a wonderful job. The commissioners that you've had for the last 10, 15, 20 years have done a wonderful job. Your taxes are the second lowest in the state. They have gone down the last 13 years or stayed the same. So go back in time to now, the past 13 years, they've consistently gone down, which I think bears out the impossibility that citizens are paying for the development, because we've also had an average of 1.8% growth per year for the last 10 years. The only county that has cheaper taxes than we do is Monroe County down in the Keys, because their only major road is a state highway done by FDOT. This is a miraculous job when you consider what's happening. So how do you pull off this? One of the ways is you allow quality things to be built. You allow urban renewal and infill. You allow the Urban Land Institute used to have something that was called refill, which really accurately described it. The city of Sarasota is getting 5 big new hotels with a residential component. Great amounts of taxes. UTC, even for people who don't like the idea, a big chunk of taxes. And for every one of those houses that gets built, remember, I dare say that almost every one of us in this room have homesteaded our property or took advantage of Save Our Homes.
20 seconds.
Those people coming in are going to pay at a rate much higher overall, grossly, than we are paying.
Very good. Thank you, Alan. Okay, Pete, and also I want to thank everybody so far. Everybody's behaving so nicely. I did, in my original emails, folks, I said, you know, here at FD10 we prefer that our conversations, that we don't run with scissors, that, you know, we can see enough personal attacks on the TV, right? Or on the commercials, or in the flyers. So we want to just have a dialogue and see what folks' ideas are. So I think that's a lot more important. I think that's what we're really thirsty for, aren't we? It's just what people, how they think. So we are to, back to you, Pete. And again, on this whole idea of priorities. And this is a good question. Sarasota County is a large, complex system to govern. Occasionally, city concerns cause the tail to wag the dog. And notice that wasn't phrased, what city? Occasionally, city concerns cause the tail to wag the dog. How will you keep a whole county viewpoint during your administration?
To begin with, you're not electing an administrator here, you're electing a legislator. The county commissioners are legislators, not executives. So we need to make that clear that we're not going to have an administration, we're going to have a term of office. Now, I think I'm going to run a little bit with the scissors, though.
Just no personal attacks, please.
Oh, I'm ready to get them. We need to clarify the core government functions of the city and of the county. What's a legitimate government functions and what's a mission creep? So once we need to recognize what these core functions are, then we need to recognize that any given city, by organizing as a municipality, has taken on some of these core functions and therefore relieved the county of the responsibility within the city boundaries. Now, let's get into a little bit about taxes. It may be true that in 13 years the taxes have gone down. But when I bought my property in '91, the taxes were $18 a year. In '92, they were increased by the county by a factor of 14. Factor of 14. So, now you may say, well, you don't really have a big property. It's true. But I planned my retirement on the assumption of $18 a year taxes. And when it went up to $250 a year, the money wasn't there. Because I had a number of things happen to me. I wasn't a rich guy. I worked for the church for a while. I worked for charities. I never had a good job. So I think I'm going to run with the scissors a little bit. They did increase the taxes by a lot. And they could do it again. They could take your taxes, the taxes you're paying, and raise them by a factor of 14. Now what would that make your tax? Anybody here think they'd like that? They could do it. When they did it the last time, some people sued them. They took it to the Supreme Court, and they won. They have the right to increase your taxes.
30 seconds.
If they want to.
You still have 30 seconds, Pete.
Well, that's enough scissors.
Very good. Thank you. Yes, you don't have to use your full time. So, again, no Steve. So, Alexandra, you can shift now to a personal, or you can go back to any of those things. And I know you've been in academia, so you may have been opening up the books on systems thinking. So, the county commissioner, that's required. However, you can take question 3 under the at-large questions, the personal. So I'll just read it, but you can fall back on the other one. Do you have other business-related interests that you're involved in? And how will these impact your role as a commissioner? What public service involvement have you had in the past, and what capacity do you serve in now? So you can take the one, the personal-related interests, and how they impact your role as commissioner, or you can go back to the holistic view of the county. Your choice.
Yeah, I think I'll go back to the holistic view of the county and maybe bring in some academia since
Okay.
you brought that up. One of the things that I think is critical in any community, in the development of any governmental structure, is the voices of the people. And that's why I market myself as the People's Commissioner. Because as an anthropologist, first and foremost, my concerns are for the people. And throughout the 2050 process, many people that have been involved in it feel like they're not being listened to. They feel like they go, they make their presentation, it's just some kind of song and dance, and then people in charge just do whatever they're going to do, and they don't really care about what the people have to say. But that is not building community. And that would be something that is really important to me, is to try to get people to understand that it's about building community. And I don't think that we need to continue to have this polarization between development and communities. there's a place where we can find a win-win for everybody, if people are willing to have that kind of conversation. So in my consulting business, that's what I look for. I listen to, very intently to high conflict situations, which I've done with the 2050, and I try to see what people are saying between the lines. And somewhere in that is where you find the spaces where you can move away from conflict-related dialogue to some type of dialogue where people can find solutions. So I think that that's really critical. And a lot of things are being missed. Like there's comments about, oh, if we just let all of East County be 5 and 10 acre lots, oh, how horrible that would be. No, it's not horrible. Because people who live a rural life, they don't want services. They don't want county water. They don't want a county sewer system. They want a septic tank. They want to live like that. So they should have that right. And if we're gonna have this comprehensive plan, we need to be really listening to the communities, and we need to be creating whatever type of development that respects that. Back to that compatible development. We need to make sure that we're really preserving people's quality of life. If they want amenities, like say we want amenities because we kind of live out here in the new urban core, you know, what other amenities do we want? Do we want another kind of restaurant to hang out at other than Madfish or the new, you know, ones that come in? What do we want over here? And we should have that voice to be able to say, yes, we want more affordable housing. Hey, we'd like to have another restaurant. No, we don't want a Walmart. You know, we should have that voice because we're the ones that live. We pay the taxes, we live here. So I really want to be a person that tries to help everybody understand that you have to listen to the community. What the people say is important, not
That's
just
time.
the people coming with money.
Thank you. Paul, here's a fresh one. And it gets to the, what, did I miss something? Fresh is good? Okay. And it goes right to the heart of the matter here as far as what you all are doing, which is running for an office that governing. The introduction of term limits, coupled with a rapidly growing population in Sarasota County, which has been mentioned, has caused concern over continuity of governance. What impact will that have on your desired priorities? How will you contribute to an orderly transition when it's your turn to step down, should you be elected?
You know, as far as for continuity, I guess maybe I don't come from a place where I make the assumption that continuity in place is good. I mean, because you can have bad continuity the same as you can have good continuity. What I'm going to say is as someone who serves as an elected official right now, is what I found is the overwhelming majority of people